Scavo, if you don't know me, for those who don't know me. And first I want to thank the library and Michelle for having me come and do a reading and a little bit of a writing workshop for this book. And I just want to say thank you for everyone for coming out on a Wednesday night. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read a little. I'm going to talk about the book a little bit before I do the reading because it does need a little bit of an explanation, so you know what I'm doing because it's an odd little book. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Then I'm going to read, and I probably will not pause between poems. You know, like a lot of readings, people will like pause and talk. I probably won't do that because the poems. The book is a sequence of poems, so I just find it's better just to keep going. And then I'll take some questions if anyone wants to ask questions, and then we're going to do a little writing prompt at the end around all this for those who are interested. Does that sound good? Thumbs up. It's also, I just want to say it's really nice to be here because for those who don't know me, I used to live in Montpelier, so it's really nice to be back and see everybody. We moved away right when COVID hit, and so it's my first time back. It's really nice to be here. So I guess I'll just say something about the book. So this book is called Buried a Place. Buried a Place. And it's a sequence of 34 cantos. And this is what each canto looks like. So what I did with this book is it's a descent narrative, and it echoes Dante's Inferno. Hey, Laura. So what I mean by echoes Dante's Inferno is that for those of you who know me, I'm a dream practitioner, so I work with people in their dreams, and I'm also a teacher, so I teach about dream work, and I've taught lots of different places. And I found that when I would talk about dream work and dreaming what dreams are, I would often refer to Dante, because Dante does this great journey where he goes into hell, and he goes to Purgatory Mountain, then he goes into heaven, and he learns about what love really is about. And so often when I'm teaching, I'll talk about Dante, like, well, it's just like when Dante in this one part does this, or it's just like this one time when he in Purgatory when he's like going through the fire. And so a couple of years ago, I thought I should, write about that. I should like be in conversation with Dante. But then I thought, well, who am I to be in conversation with Dante? Because it's Dante. Like, he died 700 years ago, and more has been written about Dante than I think about anything else. So I was a little intimidated about the idea of doing a book in relationship with Dante. But then I had a dream, and I had this dream where I was like talking with this guy, and he was like, just do the Dante project, just do it. And I woke up, I thought, oh, I have to do it now. So I started, that was about 8 years ago. It took me about 8 years to write this book. So this book covers the Inferno. So this is my own personal descent into hell. And I like to tell people it's not a fun book. I have a friend who's an actress, who's a comedian, and she's like, hey, when you do a reading, start out with the light poem, or like start out with the funny poem. I was like, there is no light poem and there's no funny poem. So I'm just gonna warn you guys about that now. But it is, it's not very fun. It's hard to joke about going into the descent. So there's not a lot of jokes, so just to tell you. So every canto, so there's 34 cantos, just like Dante's 34 cantos of the Inferno. You do not need to know anything about the Inferno to read this book or to do anything with this book. That's just my personal reference in part. But if you do know the Inferno, it can be kind of fun to kind of see, go back and forth. What else? So I think the last thing I'm going to say about it is every canto has two sections. So the main canto is like what I think is as the action of the canto. So that's on one page. And then on the other page is what I think of as the asides. So there's characters. There's the main character, who's a woman going through a descent into hell. And then she has various guides, just like Dante had, various guides on his journey. And so the main canto is the action And then the asides are the guides and the main character having internal conversations with themselves. So I'm going to read the canto and I'll read the asides because I think that happens a lot in our journeys. Things happen, we have a relationship, and then internally all these things are going on. So that's what those are. That makes sense? Okay. So I think I'll read. You guys ready? So I'm going to jump around. I'm going to start with the first two cantos because they're a good introduction in, and then I'm going to jump around a little bit. So canto 1. So canto 1, in the middle. In the middle of being lost, you have to understand. I prayed for a straight path, a true path, a way through path. In my heart, a remembrance of song forgotten, just remembrance remembered. You have to understand, I was searching desperate for path, as if anyone could find a straight through, a switchback, a new way, as if there is a rival and anywhere where song breaks. I knew there was song. I kept walking as if I could. I was utterly lost. You must understand, utterly. I shiver with it now as then, how even as it dawned in me, my lostness was cleaved. I proud, scrambled, clawed. How shadows formed around me like animal, like dream, how ruthless or ravenous, teeth flash, growl and pounce. My own brow back, such wildness frightening. You must understand how frightening, how driven, how hunted and haunted between felt and feeling. The path, even tangled, broken. There became no way. Until from shadows shadowed, one formed. Praise to the one who would tell me I am sent to guide you. Praise to the one who will say, you cannot face Pharaoh. Praise to the one who says, there is another way. I was ready to believe any story, any voice unpacked, blinding my darkness. It did not matter the story offered, just the fact of a different story, just that there was a way. I would call anyone master, guide, teacher, drugged as I was by shattered, entangled. Lead on, anything, any place better than here. He, brother or father or teacher. She will follow, she has always followed. I will show her the way, I will take her through. I am bigger than any beast that stalk her, bigger than their hunger, their ravenous, their insate. I am, of course, the one to lead her. She believes I know. We will find a way. She can sing, and we both will shine. She. There must be someone, somebody, strewn here, surrounded. What is my name? What is my name? Ravening, insate, stalked, prayed. No way there, no way back. Where is my author? Where is my author? Canto 2, Disown. I do not know how to speak this. Would that someone would help speak this that happened? Someone, anyone help with speech? I have been hesitant girl, doubtful girl, stay here girl. I have been a girl, not journey girl, not worthy girl. No girl's journey, do they? Not that kind of journey. Scrape, claw, scream journey. This body, this girl body, this not worthy girl body, this body men journey toward, over, into, through. I am not the kind who knows journey. This meant for someone who knows they own their own body. He said, will you not follow? Will you stay here again, all hunger, all desperate, all alone? Will you unwell? Once, he said, you were a girl who journeyed. Once, he said, you were journeying. Once there was a girl with words not just wanting to spill out, spilling out, over, into, through. Once I remembered following song. Once I remember being led. lead on, anywhere, anything better than once. He, brother, and he, teacher. She falters. Is she hero or coward? Does she not trust me? Does she doubt me? I understand quaking, I understand fear, but she has not even begun. I do not understand hesitation. Has she not followed stories, mine? Has she not followed steps I created? She need only to step onto the path I have laid for her. Will she not receive my grace? Must I tell the story? She. He entrusts me with this journey, but why? Why am I to be so chosen by him, so selected? Few have walked this path. Am I that? I am not like them, no hero, no saint. I do not trust I am one who can, who should. Why did he choose me? How did he choose me? All I ever wanted was to be chosen. I do not understand. Tell me the story. Tell me of how this came to be. Teacher, tell me the story. Canto 10. Proud. What rises after the gate breaks open? What harbors behind? How hidden is the behind? How utterly it would like to stay hidden? How I could throw open my arms widening? How I could light the inferno of voice, like beacon or threat? Which am I? How all I wanted after entrance was to look forward, to feed on the courage, the righteousness I carried, to lean into what was to come. My chest burning with victory, burning with release, burning with the primal leaning forward. This journey mine. As if the debris of entrance was not shrapnel, as if the collateral was not bloody, as if the gate had never refused anything or anyone, as if the slash of my voice had never cut, as if I had never been one to blow anything or anyone apart. He, teacher. After, choose your words with care. Do not back down. Daughter, do not turn away. I know the words you bury, the belief. Follow the stories that lie there in the after. Find the stories, call them from buried. She. After, beyond rampart, beyond gate, beyond protection. How he knows the words I bury, and who am I to doubt him? He turns to me and knows what I cannot say, what I fear to ask here after. Quiet, hushed, blasted. How blasted? How what is buried? Blasts. Teacher, even best intentions, even strong words, true words. If I hear the story of my place, will I find my story? If my place is never destroyed, does that mean even in the after that I will not be destroyed? Am I already? Disappear. Canto 13. I wanted to believe that the first violence my body received like a love, the first received without marks, unmarked, hidden below the skin, the first that ruptured, raptured, quaked, that this body would not receive it, not fully, not completely. But the body is like seed, like blossom, like root, like possibility, its soil red, fertile. The first violence then, after the first violence, my first violence, was desire for disappear, to be gone, to be nowhere, to be absent, to be no body, to be no location, no soil, fertile or drought stained, unsoiled. I could not imagine how a body becomes disappeared. So I imagined woods like the ones in stories. I imagined a tree like the one in that one story. I imagined entrance through rent bark. I did not imagine return. My first violence, after the first violence, the seed sprouted into roots and stems, my body rich in its branching, was desire to vanish, to unremarkable, to be unmarkable. Ye teacher. By her own hand shall the proof be. By her own hand, its reach to break and tear, so she can see where lost lands. I teach her to reach out her silenced hands to do the breaking, to bring the cry, her hands causing cry, to prove me right. By her own hands then, too, shall she make amends. She. He points to the place and I reach silence to wrench open what is closed. My own hands stained now with blood and voice, my blood, my voice. The proof of the hidden, torn at by my own hands. Is this elsewhere? How now he points to the place I must make amends. Schism, Canto 28. Just as the ones whose bodies were tortured, violated, rent, name the reasons, war, revenge, power, hatred, just as the ones whose bodies were, are owned, controlled, used, experimented upon, name the places, villages, plantations, camps, backyards, front yards, town squares, kitchens, basements, bedrooms, attics. Just as the bodies who deal out the war, the torture, the rape, the control, the power, the rage, who use the body of other as conquest, as scapegoat, as wealth, as ridicule, as whipping post, as thing, as ownable. Name them, men and men and men and women, just as all the bodies of the ones who received and the ones who gave, bodies piled, bones piled. Name it, the killing fields, the cotton fields, the oil fields, the diamond mines, the battlefields, the field behind your house. All the bodies slashed, all the bodies split in two, all the bodies with tongues cut out, all the bodies without limbs, all the bodies with throats ripped, all the bodies where the wounds are not seen, all the bodies without anyone inside of them. He, teacher, like he, brother. It's just part of the story, part of the spoils. It is what we strive for, the winning and all that it carries, the winning more than anything, the sacrifice, the words more than anything. She, not just one body, many, slashing another body, many, not just the war, the guns, the rifles, the strategies, the fists, the hands, the objects, the whip. First before are the words. I'll read two more. Canto 30, Impersonator. I remember finding stories, the ancient ones, the thrill of their existence, the how of them, the audacity, the horror, the love, the ridiculous, the truths within. How in one, the woman outraged against let out all her rage, barked, howled, tore at the eyes. How in one, the woman took the invitation of grief and went steadfast, clear-eyed into madness. How in others, retribution was given, how in others it was not. The thrill of how they made sense, story after story, how they made their way into our dreams, as if we have woken, could wake from them. I studied as if I could learn how, would dare to tear at my own hair, howl in fury, agony, turn this body into a tree, piece my brother's body back together, pray to a god or goddess who heard and appeared, as if by being anybody else, Persephone, Circe, Hecuba, Leda, Cassandra, I could be. He, teacher. She would stay in these stories, fixated, tumbling into them more deeply, lost in the volley back and forth of argument, of drama, of this for that and that for this. I will fight her on this. I will fight to bring her attention back. She. He can shoot me down with one word, one look even, pulls me out of my fascination, pulls me toward and to the next thing. One word, one look, and my attention returns to him. Is this where it should be? And the last one I'll read. Babel, Canto 31. I created when I was a girl a language. I created words, created sounds that no one else understood. They called it gibberish. They labeled my small girl body with words to explain it. I knew what it was. I was deliberate. I still do not like to know the names put to things. I still fight the language shoved down my throat. When I was a girl and they considered me unable, stupid, I rejected for a time the narrow words they would have had me live inside like a tower. Their names for me, girl, daughter, sister, their names for beings like me, flirt, tease, shrill, the sounds from their mouth about me that were different from the sounds they made for the brothers. I knew even then the difference. I already knew the soft, then not soft kind of violence. So I understood without words the soft, not soft violence of language. I tried to wrestle my body from it. I had already lost it. Until I found story, the old ones, until I found that their language had other stories besides the ones my language, my body carried, only my own. Until I needed to escape my language, my stories suffocating. Once there was a girl who knew. He, daughter, is why we tell stories. Thank you. So does anyone have any questions or comments and also from you guys out there? Hi, everyone online. Thanks for being here.
We talked about this, but just hearing you read these aloud, I can they're so powerful, and I can so see it as a stage play. You know, it just it leaps off the page. Really.
Thank you. So Susanna said that something about just how she liked the poems, but also, do I say the phrase? Anyway, but how like it's about that it can be, you can see it on stage. And actually I had a dream about that and about staging it. So I'm working on a screenplay based on this book. We'll see. I don't know how to do it because I'm a poet, not a theater people. Like I'm not theater like you guys, but I had a dream about seeing it kind of enacted. So working on that. Thank you.
Hey, Sue, I noticed that.
Hi, Jared.
Hi, Sue. That's so incredible to hear you because.
Thank you.
And I have a copy. And I noticed that you were introducing each one with a word that was different than what's in the book. So I'm just curious if there's a different version or what that.
Well, no, what I was doing, just because it's a little complicated. So the other thing about the cantos is I was doing the word that is at the bottom. So there's a word at the bottom of every canto, and then I did my own etymology of the word in the title. It just got a little complicated to do that in a reading. So anyway, so every canto has a word that's down in the footer, and then I do my own etymology of the word because I'm really into etymology, and I decided to make them up. Some of them are actual etymologies, some of them are Sue's etymologies. So
I love it.
thanks.
I noticed it was great to hear you read, Sue. It's really good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I noticed that your artwork was on the cover. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It is true. This is my artwork. About 5 years ago, I'm not a visual artist. I don't think of myself as a visual artist. But about 5 years ago, a dear friend of mine named Bettina Lancaster started doing this drawing a day online, and she did a year challenge where you post a drawing a day. And so I said, "Can I do it with you?" And she said, "Yes." And I did it for 4.5 years, and I just stopped last fall. But I still post on occasion. But this is one of the drawings from that series.
Beautiful.
And most of my drawings are like 3x5, because that's about all I can handle, because I'm not an artist. Like the big canvas is really scary, but this actual drawing is like a big piece of paper. And so I sent it to my publisher. I'm like, what about this? And like, yes. So it's kind of weird. It's on the inside too.
Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it seemed to fit for some reason. It's funny because when they start putting up, this is only part of it because it's a much bigger piece. But like I can totally see a face here, which I did not see before. Also in the back one, there's definitely a face. It's kind of creepy, which kind of fits actually. Thanks for asking, because I know you do art as well.
I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about the use of brackets.
Brackets.
How you've got lots and lots of brackets.
Brackets. The title is in brackets for those who can see online, but also I use brackets through, they're another kind of aside, you know, so I have like all the characters have these asides, but also then there's these asides within the asides, which I think is also happens. So it's kind of like sometimes when I'll be going along and I'll have like, in a thought, I'll have like this and this, and then I come back. And so the brackets felt like a really good way to hold that kind of energy. And sometimes it's contradictory, so it actually changes the sentence so that the sentence becomes two things at once. Sometimes a question becomes a statement. Sometimes it completely changes the meaning, which I think is interesting and called for. Because sometimes when we make a statement, it's like both true and false. And so I thought bracketing was a good way to do that. Plus, it's just the way I think.
That's cool, it's effective.
Mhm.
And hearing it out loud, it really is. I found it easier listening actually when I first read and saw the brackets. It's interesting. Feels like it's meant to be spoken. Yeah.
It is, yeah. I mean, it is kind of a spoken, it's definitely, I mean, when I first imagined doing readings, which I couldn't imagine doing, I'm like, how the hell is this gonna work? I thought about it having other people with me, like I thought like I'd have somebody, that's what I thought I was gonna do. And then I had the dream, was like, no, just make it a play. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, I think sometimes the brackets are also a quickening. So it's not, I think like it's not parentheses, which is a very different kind of aside, which is more in line with the sentence usually. But a bracket kind of takes you out and then back in. And so to me, there's also an energy that quickens around that. So when I find when I read it, I go really quick, I hit the bracket and I do this quick back and forth, which I think, I think the energy of the bracket holds that too. It's like a nice little container. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of happened organically too. It wasn't something I was like, I know, I'll use brackets. It just started happening. So. And a lot of the, part of what this was going to be about was about dreaming. Like a lot of the things, a lot of the images in this are from dreams, like directly from dreams. A lot of even some of the dialogue is, directly from some of my dreams. I think it's kind of fun too. Because, like a lot of writers, write from dreams. I've been like paying attention more as I'm, I read a lot of poetry, and I don't think there's a single book I've ever read that doesn't have the word dream in it. Like I dreamt my mother, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they won't say what the dream was, but they'll, like almost every book of poetry. I mean, I don't read a lot of fiction, so it's probably in fiction too, for those who read fiction. Maybe know more than I do, but dreams really do bring like sort of that bracket energy, if you will, into our consciousness. So yeah.
I'm curious if you knew you were done when you were done. Like, was there any, like the ending, like when you worked on it for a long time?
Yeah, probably from beginning to end. It took about 15 years from the idea of it to, right.
But like when you're at the actual writing, was it like, I don't know, I'm just always curious about that. Like, did you have a feeling in your body like, okay, I'm done? Yeah,
I mean, the form of the book is in prose poems, it's prose poetry. And it wasn't that form until the last iteration. It was in stanzas. And I kept thinking it was like, this is not right, this is not right. And
So you mean the editing kind of, really the editing?
It's the editing, this is probably the 10th version of this book, the final version. So, I think the opening poem was a prose poem and everything else was in stanzas. And again, like working with Dante has a very specific form. It's, in terms of rima, and he made it up himself, and he wrote in Italian, not in Latin, which, for his time was a big deal. All poets wrote in Latin. So the fact that he wrote in the common language was a big deal. So it occurred to me, I'm like, oh, well, like prose poem is like our common language. Like when you look at a prose poem, you don't think poem, you think paragraph. So is my way kind of echoing Dante wanting to be in the common language, which means that, we all take this kind of journey. Everyone starts out somewhere in their life when they're suddenly like, I feel utterly lost and I don't know what to do and I don't know where to go. And then we have different guides that come that are sometimes helpful and sometimes not helpful, and sometimes both. There's something about putting it in the common tongue that makes it, I think, more common for all of us, because we all do it. We all have those moments when we need help and all that. Go ahead.
What helped you to stay the course over that time to continue to write it? What helped you to stay inspired and motivated to see it through?
So the question was what kept me motivated through the 15 years?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I gave up on it a lot. Also it's a strange book. There's not a lot of books like this in the poetry world right now. I thought no one's gonna publish this. But I was wrong, obviously. But I think I just kept like not being able to not do it. I kept not being able to not think about it. And once I started, it was just nagging at me. So I think that was part of it. Plus, I have a lot of friends who are like, you should write that book. Even though I didn't show it to anybody because I was too afraid to. But I had a lot of people who were very encouraging and like, yes, you should keep going. And so I think, the combination of like, it was just here, like, don't let go of this. And then people going like, yeah, I want to see that book. Or I can't wait till you're done, or, whatever. So, I mean, I do think there is like, there's a place where it's important for us to say yes to whatever is calling to us. I think of it as like the obsession. So I'm a little obsessed with Dante. I've been reading Dante, for 30 years. It's always open on my desk. I have like 12 translations, and I think about it a lot. And so hence the conversation I started with it. So I think if we have an obsession and something's just in there, that, it's just like the dream, it's something that's calling to us. So to pay attention, that's really important. Plus I'm a teacher and I'm like telling people, follow the things. And I'm like, okay, so I need to follow the things. Then I had the dream that was very, the archetypal figure came in my dream and said, do it. I mean, and not in a gentle way. It's kind of like, just do it. I was a little exasperated. He was a little exasperated. Just like, do the Dante project.
At what point did that dream come? At what point in that 15-year?
It was about 7 years ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's about 7 years ago. Like, just do it. For God's sake. Sue, just do it. You've been thinking about it for 7 years. Nancy had a question.
Oh, yeah. On the back cover, Amy has this sentence: the life transcendence is in truth the molten core of violence.
Mm-hmm.
That sentence helps me understand the book, and I just wish you would speak to that a little bit in terms of, is that a departure from Dante?
I think
Read it.
so. Okay, so the question was, my dear friend and friend of many people here, Amy Irvine, who is an amazing writer. You should read everything she's ever written. She's astonishing. She's about to come out with a new book too. She wrote a beautiful blurb, and part of what she said, actually, I'll just read the whole blurb because I think it kind of. So Amy said, very kindly, never have I seen the female form so unearthed, not just the body, but the sound of its voice, the shape of its language. As buried resurrects, the Father's house is upended, a house built and maintained by enslaved bodies, sourced from an exploited earth, a house that is now on fire. There's no tongue as deft as Sue Scavo's. It's weird to read this out loud. Like, can someone else read this? To both name the crimes of the patriarchs who lived as gods and to indict her own willingness to be their supplicant until they point downward to hell, as if the inferno weren't weren't right here, right now. The lie of transcendence is in truth the molten core of violence, and a voice all atrium and ventricle. Scavo renounces the descent, reclaims what has been interred, the body a sacred topography. Is it, well, so the first question was is that a departure from Dante? I would argue no. I think Dante argues, I mean, people read Dante as like this straight thing, and it's not. It's so complicated, it's so fun to read. That's why I keep reading him. He's so brilliant and frustrating all at the same time. But I think like this idea of like transcendence, like, like in the healing community, it's all about like, we've got to like transcend the body, transcend our trauma, transcend, our past. And I think that is so not true. I think it's not about transcending at all. I think it's about being with. I think it's about integrating. I think it's about facing, honoring, obviously this book has a lot of trauma in it. And obviously we all have a lot of trauma, and I think that's true. I think everyone has trauma. And so the thing isn't like to transcend that. The thing is like to be with it. Like trauma is a normal part of being human, unfortunately. And so instead of like having it be something that we need to get away from, or having the body be something that we rise above, it's like, what about sinking into and being with, and like having relationship with all the things that make us who we are, including our trauma, including the places where we traumatized other people too, to be with all the parts of us in some way. So to me, like, so in Dante, like he goes down, he goes up, he goes into heaven, and the whole journey, he's very Catholic, whatever Catholic was at that time. The whole point was to go see the face of God. And when he comes to see God, the book ends. And so we don't ever see the face of God. And I think, I think he has a point about that. But I think, and he doesn't stay in heaven, he comes back. Like, this is like a journey he had. It was a 3-day journey, and then he came back to his body. So I don't think it's about like, even in that gesture, it's not about like rising to some like relationship with spirituality or ourselves. It's about like coming to confront it and then being in the body with it and being here, being in the messiness of this world. Part of my book tour is I went out and did some readings with Amy out west, and it's burning. I was in Santa Fe, and a week later it was like, there's like this huge fire out there. So do we transcend that? I don't think so. I think we work with ourselves and we be with the planet and we be here with it. So, I think a lot of the idea of like moving through things is like moving past them instead of like moving into and being with. Does that make sense? So I think there is a lie about transcendence. I think there is a way that we've been taught to, I think, avoid being in the body. And the body is, really important to be in our own bodies, to be with everything that we carry in our bodies. And to be in the body in the way that is unique to us. I think that's another part of the lie of like a lot of spirituality, is that there's one way to be in the body, or one way to be with the planet, one way to be with our work, one way to be with our trauma. Like I was, in the place where I was taught dream work, like my teacher was always like, there's only one thing that is above all else, is dreaming is the best thing ever. That's a lie too. Like everyone has their own way. Dreaming is great for me. I think dreaming is open for everybody, but everyone has their own way. And I think part of the lie of the transcendence is like, people will be like, well, this, Buddhism is a way, or Catholicism is a way, or whatever. It's really like, what is your way? And it may be many ways. Like mine is dream work and writing and walking and being by the ocean and reading Dante. Those are my ways, and poetry. I have friends like it's being Catholic and then doing body work and doing Reiki. Like everyone has their ways. And I think it's really important to honor that. So part of the lie of transcendence is embedded in that, is like the idea that there's only one way to transcend, or there is a transcendence instead of like a way of being, which is very unique to each of us.
Your question, what advice would you give others who want to write from their own dreams?
That's a great question. Who asked that question?
Penny.
Thanks, Penny. So I think to write from your own dreams is tricky because, I mean, it's not that tricky, but it's kind of tricky because you don't just want to write your dream because it's very personal to you. And so to me, like using our dreams as a place of inspiration, as a place of material, if you will, I think is really important. And I think there's a way to find your own way to do it. So one of the things I do is I don't talk about it as a dream. I won't say I had a dream or I dreamt this. I'll just write the thing as if it happened, because in a way it kind of does. So so one way to work with a dream is like to take an image and just write it as if it happened, write it in first person, you know, explore it and go into the sensuality of it. Like what do I feel? What did I feel in that moment? And to put that in the writing, to like have a look around the moment in the dream. You know, my fellow dreamer, Mary Kay Casper here, has this great way of like taught me this way of like standing in a dream and like looking at the landscape and like letting the landscape look back. That's a beautiful way. I love that, like beautiful way of being with a dream in a creative way too. Is like, what is landscape speaking to me in that moment? Like what am I speaking back? What's happening in my body when I'm there too? So those are ways you can do it. You can also say like, I dreamt about my mother, or I dreamt about the ocean, and then just start writing from that place. I mean, I find that writing from childhood dreams can be really powerful. So to take a childhood dream, an image from a childhood dream, and just start with that and just whatever comes out. And, you know, again, I don't think that I would take a whole dream. Some of us dream in like what I think is movie dreams, like this happened and this happened. And like 3 pages later, you're still like this happened and this happened. So, I mean, I think it can be really powerful to take like one moment, one image, one event, and really create something from that one thing. I have a poem in here about an eagle, and I had a whole series of dreams about eagles, and they all kind of came into one poem. Instead of like doing all these different ones, there's like the energy was held into that one poem. So that's one way to think about it. You can also read people who are, you know, write from their poems. A poet that wrote a lot from her dreams almost exclusively is a poet named Jean Valentine. She just passed away like a year and a half ago. She writes beautifully about from her poems, and she does the thing that I was talking about, like where she just talks about, you know, this happened. I was walking carrying a deer over my shoulder. No, I know Jean Valentine. She's about this tall, and she lived in New York City. She did not walk around with deers with a deer on her shoulder, but like, you know, so that was from a dream. But she like, you know, she created that was a beautiful, so you know, beautiful image. So she just wrote about that one moment and what it felt like and where she was going. So does that help, Penny? She's not on, so I can't think.
Yeah, no, there's no response there.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jackie.
I haven't read the book yet, and I have never.
What? You haven't read the book? I'm so bad.
I've never read too much of Dante, but I have this stupid question about, I know I really got the girl as I was listening,
Mhm.
but can you talk about the changes in he throughout?
Sure. So the one thing that, so the question was about like the she, which is the main speaker of the poem, is the main speaker of the book. And then there's all these other he's. One of the things I love about Dante is his relationship with Virgil. So the book starts out, he's like literally in the woods, lost. And he's like, oh, and he gets confronted with these beasts and he doesn't know what to do. And he's like, kind of like wailing on the ground. Anyway, so so Virgil shows up, and Virgil's been sent by these women from heaven to help him. And he's like, I've been sent to guide you, so I'm going to take you down. The only way to get where you're going is to go down first. So, and there's lots of reasons why he picked Virgil. Virgil was his favorite poet. Like if I were going to pick a poet, if I were to pick someone from the afterworld who was going to come take me through hell, I'd probably pick Dante. It's like, you know, like Dante was a fanboy of Virgil, let's put it that way. So, so Virgil takes him through 2 of the books, through hell and up Mount Purgatory. And so it's, so part of Dante is the relationship between Virgil and Dante, about how it changes, how Virgil is often not a great teacher for him and doesn't know what the hell's going on, even though he says he does. So it's a very complicated relationship. And I think, writing sort of a descent narrative from a woman's point of view, for me, so it's very personal book, obviously. And so for me, I've had a lot of male voices around me saying, well, you should do this, you should do that. So the he is not just one Virgil, it's like different, like, it's different teachers, or my father's in there, my brother's in there. So it's different voices that have come in to my head, in my world, around what I should be doing and should not be doing. It's complicated, because I think it usually is. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that was just about where to see the video, which you may all want to know as well. The library does have a YouTube channel. We put all of our program videos on that, and we also put it on the adult programs page. So where you get information about the upcoming programs, you can also see the videos of the past programs.
I think I might not do the writing exercise. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
This is a different kind of question, but 2 months ago, I took a photograph of Dante's death mask. Would you like to see?
Sure, sure. When I was in Florence, I went to where his house was.
Lots of it.
Yeah. I still have all the, the little brochures. I cried.
I was speechless.
Yeah, right? I mean, come on. Yeah, and that was before, I went there before I even started doing dream work, before like, sort of like the two worlds came together. I was just like, oh, Dante.
What did the house look like? Just kind of a basic.
No, the house. I mean, it's not the original house, right?
Oh, it's in the Palazzo Vecchio, which is like the Palace of the Medici.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
When they were running things.
Right.
Before Cosimo was back moved up to the palace.
Mhm.
And it's right in the middle of town. It's on the Piazza della Signora.
Oh, you have a way better memory than I do.
But it's still the town hall.
It's still the town hall.
Yeah.
That's right. I
It
totally
was
forgot
the
about
seat
that.
of government and it always happened and it still is.
Right.
But it's a beautiful museum in there and it's in there.
Okay, very good.
It's near Eleanor's chambers.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Sue, could I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
You said that you thought there would be, no one would ever want to publish it, but clearly it does that.
It has been, yeah.
I wonder if you could speak to that process.
Well, I sent it out to like some contests, in the poetry world, like your first book, you send it out to contests, and it did not get picked up, obviously, that way. But I wasn't done. You were asking like I would send it out. I'm like, oh, it's not done. Like it's not done. And then a friend of mine, Carla Van Vliet, had a book published through the press. It's called Anhinga Press. It's an amazing press. You guys should check them out. They only do poetry. She said you should send them your book. I mean, Carla knew about it. Of course, I hadn't shown it to anybody because I was like, this is too weird of a book. And the publisher, the editor was like, yeah, send it. So I sent it and they were like, we'd like to publish it. I mean, I think I sent it to Carla before I sent it to the publisher and said like, is this really stupid? And she's like, oh my God, no. So my editor was the second person who'd seen the book. It was a little like, and then when, you do the acknowledgements and I'm like looking at other people's acknowledgements, like, and people are like, thanks so-and-so for like helping me shape these poems. I'm like, oh dear God, maybe I should have had somebody else look at these poems. But yeah, that's how it came.
Just want to be clear, did you have to self-publish through them or they published?
No, they
at
picked me.
your investment?
No, yeah, they're regular press. So I just, the editor was like,
That's great.
go ahead and send it. And I sent it thinking, yeah, no way. And then it was like, a 5-month process of conversation about it. And so, yeah.
Didn't you say the editor changed one word or something?
Well, they wanted to change one word.
Oh.
And we argued a lot about it. And I finally agreed. I was like, okay, fine. One word. I had the word slurped in there and in this one slurped, and I love that word. And my editor was like, I just keep thinking about Slurpees, and I really don't think you want the word slurp in there because of the Slurpee thing. She was right, actually.
Do you think you could repeat the questions, please?
I can look.
Suck tail.
I think the phrase was fire slurped air. So it was something which I still actually like.
I sipped.
I don't think I used slurped, no. I will find it though in a minute. I don't remember which canto it was.
Could you please repeat the questions when people
One
ask?
word. I mean, when she called and she's like, we'd like to change one thing. I thought, okay, here it comes. Because, we all hear horror stories about like editors saying one thing, and then it's like the core of the book. And I was like, okay. And she's like, we notice that it's like in like prose poems. I'm like, oh my God, they want stanzas. Like after I just changed it from not stanzas. And she's like, well, we would just like to have a little more space in there. I'm like, meaning what? She's like, we just put a little more space between sentences. Like, literally just on the page. I'm like, oh, sure. I'm not a book designer. You can do whatever you want that way. So it was kind of a miracle, actually, I think.
Was the first part that you read on the right, and then you went to the left?
No, left. Main canto is here, and then that sides are down here
Okay,
on
I'm
the
sorry.
page.
I heard that.
Mhm. So when you open the canto, both parts are on the same page. So. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you again for having me. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for coming out, and thanks everyone out there for being here too.